Advantages and disadvantages of being a limited company or a sole trader. A limited company in the UK is legally totally separate from the person or persons who form it. In other words, the directors and shareholders of a limited company have limited liability within the terms of the Companies Act as opposed to sole traders or other non-limited businesses where personal assets like house, car and everything one owns are at risk if the business fails. So as I said, a limited company have limited liability within the terms of the Companies Act. Sole traders, personal assets are at risk if the business fails. When it comes to VAT, sole traders cannot be VAT registered if they earn under $25,000 a year. Limited companies can be VAT registered even when their profits are less than $25,000 a year. Dividends to shareholders on profits of a limited company do not pay national insurance. They pay tax on their profits. All profits of a sole trader are taxed, and one pays national insurance on the amount of profit one makes. When it comes to claiming expenses, limited companies can claim company formation fees, accountancy fees, business and travel accommodation, which includes actual meal costs when working at remote sites away from the normal place of work and when staying away from home overnight, but daily round some claims for meals are not permitted. Travel expenses, the cost to get to and from one's temporary place of work, mileage rates are 45p per mile for the first 10,000 miles in any fiscal year, and then 25p per mile thereafter. This allowance is to cover fuel and running costs of the vehicle. If you're traveling to work as a passenger in a car, you're entitled to claim 5p per mile. You can also claim for parking and the congestion charges, but you may not claim for parking fines or speeding fines. The cost of travel by public transport can be claimed, but you must have a valid receipt. The mileage allowance can also be claimed for travel by motorcycle and bicycle at rates of 24p per mile and 20p per mile respectively. Accommodation expenses, those are the cost of hotel or bed and breakfast accommodation, can be claimed as an expense, as can the reasonable cost of additional meals taken in conjunction with overnight accommodation. There are no set allowances for accommodation, but the cost must be deemed to be reasonable. This also applies to the cost of meals. Other costs is like postage, stationery and telephone calls, employers' national insurance contributions, subscriptions, insurance, contributions to an executive pension plan get as much as 48% tax relief, business entertainment expenses, pension schemes for limited companies. One can invest part of one's income into a company pension scheme, saving not only the income tax that would ordinarily be payable, but due to the pension contribution, employers and employees' national insurance contributions are lower than they would have been. The amount of tax relief can be as much as 48%, meaning that for each £100 invested, one pays £52 and the taxman pays the rest. What expenses can sole traders claim? The basic rule is that you can claim expenses that are wholly and exclusively for the purpose of carrying out your trade. If working from home, £4 a week can be claimed, or £208 a year. A proportion of line rental and broadband costs can also be claimed. Mileage is calculated the same as limited companies. Health and safety legislation when it comes to live music events. Depending on the size of the live music event seating and standing capacity, whether the event is indoors or outdoors will require different applications of the health and safety legislation. To assess the legal capacity of an outdoor event, it will be helpful to have the advice of an experienced risk assessor to assess maximum capacity after considering access, regress and flow of audience, staff, equipment, and entertainment. The rendezvous points are sterile areas reserved as rendezvous points for emergency services or firework fallout zone. Placement of equipment and surfaces so that they do not impede the audience view or enjoyment and are secured so not to cause harm. Surface and underground conditions to accommodate whatever one wants to place on the surface, so that the surface is strong enough to hold it if you put in amplifiers and so on. Site venue plans, when indoors, may have specific restrictions because of licensing laws. In the case with live events and music events, if it's indoors, no special license applies if it's up to a capacity of 200 people. If it's over 200 people, the venue, they have other applications. A health and safety policy must be in place for any organization that has more than 5 employees. The work regulations on noise, that is the Control of Noise at Work Regulations 2005 Act, requires each employer to manage the risk to their employees and, where possible, freelancers to control, reduce, and monitor exposure to noise so that the audience can still enjoy the performance with the controls in place. Under the noise regulations, self-employed persons have the same responsibilities as employers and employees for their health and safety arising from the exposure to noise, and for other people whose hearing might be damaged by the act of emission. It comes to contract law for live events. The contract law is based on the principle expressed in the Latin phrase "pact sunt servanda," meaning agreements must be kept. Professional services, as in live music entertainment, where there's a contract, are binding for both parties. One side agreeing to conditions, such as the commercial agreement, amount that should be paid for the service. Both parties must have the capacity to contract, meaning the contract, first of all, the purpose and form of the contract must be legal, and the contract with a minor is illegal, is voidable. Each contractual term gives rise to a contractual obligation, breach of which can give rise to litigation. Consumer protection legislation affecting live music events. The 2009 White Paper Better Deal for Consumers protects the consumer's rights in relation to goods and services. And the Work Regulations on Noise Act are there not only for the musician and organizers, but also for the audience. In this case, the consumer of music. When too loud, music can be damaging to consumer as well as its practitioners. And that is all of the differences between limited companies as opposed to sole traders, and the legislation tying both of these companies together. Thank you.